Sorry. Right on time. Hello. You died. But you're not dead. Yet. I won't confuse you with archaic terms. Let it suffice that you died under extremely rare circumstances and will revive, giving you the unique experience of a meeting with me rather than a visual reaping. I don't weave your destiny, but I am here nonetheless. Usually, I listen to some weeping and questioning on when I'm coming back to pluck them from the earth. Some repent, but all are afraid. You may begin with your weeping and questioning now if you choose. I am benevolent in nature, and I do the work for God. Try not to use stereotypes with God. God is not properly portrayed in any aspect. Only being with God can give you those answers. You don't look worried at all. You know, your name could be in here for tomorrow. No, nor do you look in need of an epiphany. Nor do you seem to be a bad person with much need of repentance to God. At this moment, anyway. Excuse me. You want to know about me? Where I come from? Fascinating. I like you. I'll tell you a tale, like you've never heard it before. I would tell you the story of death. Yes. My existence came to be exceptionally unique, as I was birthed from the light of my mother and father in a time before sin. My parents were Adam and Eve. I was their firstborn, though I am never mentioned. My name is Ankou. Ankou. The name was given to me by my father. Now, I have never had a concept of time, not in any form that I've ever had. So I can't tell you how long I was a child in the Garden of Eden, but I feel as it was ages. I was playing a creek bed, looking for some new animals for my father to name, when I felt a change in the climate of the garden, like so that I had never felt before. A breeze that was chilling and caused the flesh of my arms to goose, and on my neck to bubble. I did not know fear then. No concept of fear existed, but curiosity I had in abundance. I followed the direction of the breeze, and found my mother. She was in the center of the garden, and she was talking to a snake on the tree of life. I have never felt any dislike for anything before, so when I seen the snake talk and slither, and a feeling that I couldn't understand, but it reminded me of when I would walk by the creek and my feet would go in the muddy water. Mud would come up and mix and cloud the water. I wanted to say something to my mother, to let her know I was there, but I did not. I listened as the snake talked and slithered in a smoothness and pompous way that further murked the water of my being. She seemed quite pleased with what it had told her, that she was special, and God didn't want her to know what He knows, or she would be God herself. And then what would God have to do but tend a boring garden? Eat from the fruit that made God, and you will know truth as you have never known it before. She happily ate the fruit. Her expression turned instantly to one of perplexity. She looked around as if she knew nothing of the plants and animals. Before that moment, she squirmed and covered parts of herself. Later, my father would get the same look on his face. And God would come to shame them for their sin, and eventually banish them out of the garden altogether. But this didn't happen overnight. Day after day, I found myself less and less able to understand the motives and expressions that my parents now portrayed. Finally, one night, an angel of God came to me, and I talked with him for a long, long time, asking questions about why my parents wanted to cover me in leaves, and why my father would sit for hours and stare at bugs or plants. What did he see now that he hadn't seen before? The angel told me that now they see death. They take notice that when a plant is plucked from the earth, it no longer exists. Your parents see that change that happens over time. What is time? I asked. Time is God's way of organizing events, he said to me. You were born, you mature, you reproduce, you die. This is the way that all is recycled and reused. Your parents know that one day this will happen to them, and that they will one day enter a change of being. They will return to God and their energy recycled. I had to think about this for a while. And when I talked again, I said, will this happen to me? No, Ankou. You are pure of sin and will always be nurtured and cared for by this garden. But a time will come when your parents will no longer be welcome here, with the knowledge that they will eventually destroy the garden. If left to their impulses. Why would they destroy the garden? It was a gift from God. I can't believe that they would want to make God angry again. Little Ankou, it would not be their intention. Your parents have learned of intimidation. Intimidation. They are fooled by the desire to create as God has. It is an inquestable pursuit, but one man will forever have a need to pursue. It is a questionable pursuit. One man will forever challenge. Man will grow. Your parents will have many children. Who will have many children? Each have a need for the imitation of God. For each will be born with the ability to understand the nature of their existence as mortals and fear it as so till the moment of their death. It is fear what I feel now, I asked the angel, knowing that my parents are going to die. Would you feel the sadness of loss? One where you were never meant to have, he said. And after death, they will return to God. This is all very confusing, I said. I'm not sure I understand it at all. Why would any fear death? If it's what God has planned, God is wonderful. Why not die on purpose to be with God? He looked at me and could see my innocence and said, because God wants them to live, to experience this world He created for them, a world of unmatched beauty and complexity. It is God's wish that one day man will learn to imitate Him spiritually, and one day be worthy of Eden and the understandings of the complexities of life as God has created it. I find everything around me beautiful, I replied to this. Why would anyone destroy such a beautiful garden, a paradise, a utopia, and then try to recreate it? It just didn't make any sense. That is where God appeared to answer my query. Young one, he said to me, I have given your parents free will. As they passed it on to you, Their need to express this has been tainted by the inception of sin. They believe that they are capable of my understanding, but that is not true. Only after death can a man comprehend such knowledge. Ankou, I give you a choice. I love you, and I want only happiness for you. But I sense your discontentedness that grows in you. You know that you will be alone here in the garden, and the death of your parents saddens you. I have asked you not to eat from the tree of life, but now I offer you the fruit from the tree of death. It will give you the understanding that you seek, but it will forever change you. You will not be tainted by sin, and therefore can forever reside here in the garden. But you won't want to. Sorry, it's hard for me to remember these times. I did not have to think on it long. I wanted to know why my parents had changed so. I wanted to comfort them from their fears of death. I will eat the fruit, God, I said. I thanked the angel and he was gone, leaving me alone to follow God to the tree of death. I had never heard of its existence or knew that such of a thing was in the garden at all. God led me to a pond to the right of a tree, to the right of the tree of life. Jump into this pond and you will forever find yourself on the near side. Don't be afraid. The tree will be there and you will have your fruit. The only fruit on the tree that it grew just for you. My trust in God was perfect. Without question, I jumped into the pond. But instead of getting wet, I felt myself flip somehow and found myself being launched out of the pond and easily landing on the other side. I felt myself flip somehow and found myself being launched out of the pond and easily landing on the ground of its edge. The ground was dark and light streaked across the sky and called loudly. The clouds were just as dark as the sky with some gray light, a buzz, energy, and it danced in them. There were no leaves on any branches around or grass on the rocky ground. Somehow, it was just as marvelous as the garden itself. The tree was where God said it would be. The bark was black, and it also had no foliage. At its top was one golden fruit that stuck out against everything else here. It looks as though it came from the other side of the pond. I climbed and plucked the fruit, sitting down on the cold stone and leaning against the tree. I bit. I felt pain for the first time. I clutched my throat. Something was wrong. I realized that I needed air and had never noticed before. My flesh began to boil. It was a sensation I could not explain. Then I felt fear. Fear for my flesh as it fell to the stony floor. Once the flesh was gone, the pain and need for air left with it. I was left with the sensation of being exposed. God came through the pond and walked to stand before me. I felt an awkwardness of my bony body. I did not feel the need to cover myself as my parents had. Instead, I wanted to flaunt myself, because I was now even more of a unique creation of God than before. Your understanding has already begun to take seed, God said. You know now of pain and of the concepts of shame. You will take a long time to understand the intricacies of human sin. I have a task for you, and with it I give you 2 gifts. You will be the reaper of human souls. When death's time has come for one, you will care for and collect and learn from them. And finally, guide them to be judged. Do this and you'll gain knowledge that only I have truly understood. I accepted graciously, thankful for God's love for me and what he was offering. He then bestowed upon me my cloak. It covered me and felt comforting on my new body. God told me that with it I could travel between time and space to be ever where I'm needed, and that at any time I could return to the garden for as long as I pleased and for as long as I wanted, because time did not matter there. Finally, he gave me a scythe, a symbol of man's understanding of completion. When a plant is ready, a scythe plucks it from the earth, as I now pluck men from the earth when their time comes, else they would wilt and wither in darkness. Soon after, what the angel told me came to pass, my parents falling out of the glory of God and told to leave the garden and never return. Had they had more children, like me, I wouldn't have been alone. But it wasn't until after they left the garden that they had more children. Though all were of painful labor for both mother and child. I watched them through the mirror pond as they grew older and as my siblings grew up. I learned a little then from myself as I ached slightly. I was separate and all but forgotten, a human feeling associated with death but never partaking. It made me laugh out loud. They don't realize that none of them are ever forgotten. God forever remembers all of them, and one day they will all share in God's knowledge. I wondered then just how many feelings I can share with my brethren. So that's that. God made me the reaper so that one day I could understand you and what you do, why you do it, and the evolution that your children will one day aspire to. I get to witness it all firsthand, but don't let that determine your purpose. God has a purpose equal and grander than my own for each and every one of you. I actually envy what you'll get to experience one day. Okay, are you ready to go back now? No. You want to know more? I will indulge your curiosity, if only because it arouses my own. I will tell you about my first reaping. Okay? Though God tasked me with the collection of human souls, I have been present for many special animal and plant deaths as well. The first death ever to take place in this reality was Iknib. That was the name God gave the buffalo, whose hide made the first pelt coverings for my mother and father. Winter was coming. For the first time, God knew that Adam and Eve knew little or nothing of the cycles outside the garden. The garden was temperamental. The garden was temperate, eternal. The world has a harsh opposite. He didn't want his children to suffer the cold without protection. He asked the buffalo to sacrifice itself to Adam's spear so the man could share in the armor that keeps him and the world around him. Messed up there. Backtrack to he asked the buffalo. He asked the buffalo to sacrifice itself to Adam's spear so that man could share in the armor that keeps him and his kind warm. Adam was already trying to use the world around him and had noticed the protection other species had and wondered how to utilize this for himself. God knew this. Destroying to create, this was the way of things now, and God would give the world to his favorite creations. The buffalo appeared to wander right in front of Adam. He took it down with one blow. Secretly, God's hand guided Adam's so that Echnib would feel no pain or suffering. When Echnib left the realm of mortals, I was there to greet him. He had been touched a second time by the hand of God and would forever be sacred and holy. For willingly giving his life for God's favor, he was immortalized as a guide to divinity. This can still be seen around the world today. I still visit Echnib. Like myself, he is always welcome in the garden, and he frequents it often to graze and nap. He's much still a buffalo, after all. Okay, this is the part where... Okay, this is where we part. Who knows? Maybe you'll die for a moment in your sleep again, and we can have another talk. Goodbye.